welcome to Returns on Resilience, the official podcast of the Women's Entrepreneurship Initiative, empowered by Invest Atlanta. We're so excited to be here. I am Dr. Dawn Sizemore, and in this space, we go deeper than funding rounds and elevator pitches and talk real talk about all things women entrepreneurship in the Atlanta innovation economy. Today, on our very first episode, I am joined by entrepreneurs, investors, and Atlanta powerhouses, Jen Bonnett and Shila Nieves Burney. Thank you so much for being here today. Hope you're staying cool on this Atlanta heat. And to just jump right on in, let us learn a little bit about who you are, your journey, and what drew you into entrepreneurship and innovation. Like, how'd you get here? Jen, kick us off.
It's great to be here. I'm excited to be here for this inaugural podcast. I am Jen Bonnett. I am a serial tech founder turned entrepreneurship ecosystem builder. And I started this path a long, long time ago. I spent 10 years in corporate America in tech, grew up to vice president of technology for a publicly traded software company. The story with that company is actually I was with it when it was smaller before it went public. And so I had these things called options that I didn't really understand. And when the company went public, I had these things called shares, which were worth real money. And I went, maybe I should do more of this. And I went out and started my first startup with some friends. Nice. So that started my journey to 8 more startups. And then eventually a very good friend saw that I was doing some work in the give back space. I had started a nonprofit called Startup Chicks, and Sig Mosley, anybody in Atlanta knows him, said, you know, Jen, what you're doing there is really special. Maybe you should do more of that and not this little startup that you're working on right now. And that's how I pivoted into the entrepreneurship ecosystem building, was based on his advice and my work with female founders back in 2008 to 2011, wow, which led me to where I am today in supporting all entrepreneurs in Metro Atlanta to try and help them. The way I frame it is my job as an ecosystem builder is to help them have an easier time launching and growing their startup than I did when I was doing it back in the day.
This is exciting because Jen and I have been working together for almost 5 months. We've been at it, getting ready to relaunch the Women's Entrepreneurship Initiative, and I'm just excited to learn more about this journey. And Shila, give us your spiel as well. How'd you get here? Tell us a little bit about you.
So my story is a little bit different. My journey to entrepreneurship wasn't linear. I've done a lot of things in the past. Just for the audience, I am Shila Nieves Burney, the founder and managing partner for Zane Venture Fund. In 2019, my daughter was a victim of crime here in Atlanta in one of our neighborhoods, and a gun violence, and she survived that incident, but it left me frustrated deeply. And I decided at that time, I was working with an entrepreneur who was sourcing capital. And after this incident, my daughter is the one who suggested that I continue to do this work, in spite of me being so frustrated about the deal, the investor dropping out of the deal. So I decided to go ahead and do something differently versus I started out working with women specifically on empowerment events and that sort of thing, and I decided to stay in venture capital and solve the access to capital problem that a lot of entrepreneurs have. And so that led to Zane Access, which led to Zane Venture Fund, which has led to 9 portfolio companies and 100 companies graduating from our programming. And so we are just getting started with our work. We are proud of what we've done here in the ecosystem, and the City of Atlanta, Invest Atlanta have been great partners. And I'm excited to be on this inaugural podcast to talk about some of the work that we've done.
Wow, thank you so much again, both of you, for being here. And I think even in your opening, just introducing yourselves already, like those personal experiences that really shape the entrepreneurship journey is so important, specifically for women. Shila, tell us a little bit more about how those personal experiences shape the decisions you make regarding your own journey as an entrepreneur, and also how you think about Atlanta as a thriving innovation economy.
Sure. And so I want to say this about Atlanta. Before I got into entrepreneurship, Atlanta has always been a thriving city for anyone who was really committed to entrepreneurship, building a business, or if you wanted to go the corporate route. That's the great thing about the city. We have so many avenues to offer.
Absolutely.
In terms of my journey, once when I first of all, I've always been about making money. Even as a little kid, I worked in little stores, but I never thought about like making money or building a business. I always thought about, I would work for other organizations. And so now being on the other side of that table, and I see these young folks who, my portfolio companies that I work with a lot, building companies, I can sit in that seat and say, I understand what you're doing because I'm a founder as well and I'm an entrepreneur. I have to go out and raise money just like you. I got to have all these certain things as part of my business. And so there's a lot of relatability there with me and the entrepreneurs that I invest in and those who are coming through our platform. And so I think bringing that lived experience has been incredible for me. I've been in nonprofits. I've been on the corporate side. I've been in several different, what I call like just a curvy line path in my background that I bring a lot of those perspectives to entrepreneurship. And so for me, it's just been an incredible opportunity to now give back. I did it through mentorship all of my career, but now to be able to do it as an investor and pour into the lives of these entrepreneurs beyond mentorship and providing capital has been the best, I think, part of this journey so far. All right.
Yes, so I want to have Jen. That one line stuck out. You said a lot there. Making money,
Yes.
and when you opened up, Jen, you talked about realizing options, shares, and how this led you into entrepreneurship and as an investor. How does that realization, that mindset of making money, how has that shaped how you invest in companies, how you support other entrepreneurs, and how does that energy really help Atlanta as an ecosystem really be what it is? That focus on making money, like what does that mean to us really?
Sure. So I coach a lot of entrepreneurs that are kind of afraid of the money piece. And it's really kind of shocking to me. But, if I go back to my childhood, I was raised not to talk about money, right? And I think a lot of people were. So as you start this entrepreneurial journey, I think money is a learned skill. And I think this is something that we have to teach our entrepreneurs, right? And so it's so important. If you're not asking a customer or investor for money, you're not going to get the money. First, you have to make an ask, right? And then you have to make a big enough ask to make sure that your business is sustainable and can grow and actually support the what you're going to deliver to this customer. But at the end of the day, I believe it's a fun, it's a teachable skill. We need to talk about it. We need to talk about what it really means to start a business and what that really means about going out and asking other people to fund your business. We need to talk about how to do a better job asking customers to actually pay for the services that we're providing to them. And I think, but it is also, I want to roll it back. It is a learnable skill. So the more you do it, the more you go out and say, would you invest in me? Would you purchase my product for X? The easier it gets. In fact, one of the reasons that I've done nonprofits for so long is because you never learn, you always have to ask for money. So when I did startups, I might be asking for millions of dollars in funding, right? I might be asking for $2 million to help me get this company to the next level, right? When you do a nonprofit, you're probably not asking for $2 million. Maybe you are, but most of the nonprofits I ran, it was more like $25K here or $10K here. But I had to make an ask almost every day. And since it's a learned skill, I never wanted to unlearn it. So, I think the biggest thing about money is we have to have the conversations. We have to talk about it. Even as mentors in the community, when I ask a person for their financial model, they're shocked that I actually want to look at it. Are no other mentors asking for this, right? So I think, it's important to get in the weeds with these entrepreneurs, and it's important to help them understand the financial models and practice asking for money on me, You can get a no from me because you're going to get a lot of no's.
Yeah. But I think so. But I think that's part of the confidence problem, primarily with women, right? The thought of asking and being told no, or the thought of asking and being given some crazy answer. So the best thing is just not to ask, and that's the part I think we need to teach women. And I've had women when I've been on pitch competitions, and they're asking a woman, this particular woman, for her financials, and she didn't have them. And then she apologized profusely about not having them. And so when it came time to give our feedback, and I told her, don't ever do that again. You don't have them, say you don't have them, you'll make sure you have them the next time. But to be so apologetic by not having something in a pitch competition, and here's the thing, they weren't going to give her any money in this pitch competition. And I hate those sort of pitch competitions where you make me do all this work and then you're going to criticize me to death, but you're not going to give me a dime. And so she ended up emailing me later, thanking me for helping her understand that it's okay not to have something. It doesn't take away from who you are as an entrepreneur. Learn how to say, I don't have it, and move on. Don't give any other answer. And so not only having the financials, but understanding the confidence in the time when you may not have them at that moment. And so I think just teaching women overall about their place at the table. I was speaking to one of my portfolio companies the other day, and she's telling me about an investor on her cap table who is just giving her a hard time. I'm like, you're still the founder and the CEO, and until that changes, you're still in charge. And so women have to know they own that cap table, they own that business, and you have a right to say no. You have the right to learn about money. You have a right to ask for money because you're building something that's fundable. And so I think we have to get into that position of, and people ask me all the time, how do you get these people to do things for you? You have to ask. If I never ask, I'm never going to get anything.
Right.
And so I think that's the biggest hurdle about money. Never asking, or never, even for women I had to invite women to invest in my fund because no one had ever invited them to invest in a fund. They just assumed women didn't have the liquidity to do that.
Yeah.
And I like the confidence factor, right?
Yep.
And I often meet with entrepreneurs, and I'm like, you are the CEO.
Yeah.
Only you can be the CEO.
Yeah.
And sometimes they're like, well, I might want to look for somebody. I'm like, well, at this stage of the company, you're the CEO, and I hope you never look for somebody to replace you because this is your baby, right? This is your idea. You're the founder, right? And only you can do this at this stage of the company.
100%.
Right? So you got to move forward. And then, 100 people are going to, when you go to people and ask them for help on a problem, you're going to get 100 different answers. You're the CEO. You've got to make the decision on 100%. How to solve that problem. You can get advice, but you are the decision maker.
At the end of the day.
And that board member, if you don't take their advice, you can always go back to them and say, look, I heard you. I heard what you said. I chose to go this way because of X, Y, and Z. And I may be wrong, and you may be able to tell me you told me so in 3 months, but this is the path that I've chosen for the company, and thank you for your advice. But I want you to know that I heard you.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm hearing a lot about growth, the need for growth, the need for vulnerability, not being afraid to put yourself out there, and this kind of is getting to the concept of the podcast of resilience. Based on your experience and what you've seen, what sets those women apart, from the ones that are successful and the ones who may not, be successful? And how does resilience really play a factor in building the confidence and achieving that level of success for the long term and growing and scaling a business?
Yeah. So one thing you said the word about vulnerability. Most entrepreneurs will not communicate about anything that's happening with the business, whether it's positive sometimes, whether it's negative. And so they take all that and keep that all inside. And as I said, I'm having these one-on-ones not with my team, just me and the founder, my portfolio companies, because I want to know how they're doing. Founders are so wrapped up in their company, they don't know how to tell you how they are doing. They tell you how their business is doing, how their revenue, how the customers, and I had to say, wait, we're going to get to that in a minute. How are you doing? And I think vulnerability, they don't get that. If you be a bit vulnerable with me, and maybe we'll get to the root of why some of these problems are happening and why you can't be successful. The other piece is communication. Well, that's part of the vulnerability. Like, communicate and let us know you're stuck somewhere. And I think the best entrepreneurs communicate well with their investors. They don't leave us hanging, waiting for months for reports. They keep us, informed of what's happening with the company. And then being able to say what you don't know and asking for help. It's okay to ask. I still ask. Sig has been with me now for 7 years. Believe me, I'm still learning. And so I still get mentored by him. I get mentored by some others in the business. But learning is lifelong. You don't get to a certain level and then it's all over.
Yeah.
I got it all.
You're talking my language, lifelong learning. I'm all about anything learning and development. What sets those women apart, Jen? Like what is that thing related to resilience that really sets those women apart that are successful in growing and scaling their businesses and getting the funding they need to grow?
So I think first and foremost, I think any woman can do this, but it's also a very difficult path. And you have to be aware of the path that you're choosing when you choose it. And you need to be prepared. It's a very long road. And there's going to be...
Can you be prepared, though? Can you even be prepared for this?
I think
you've prepared.
I think we've been talking a little bit about jumping out of the plane and making the parachute on the way down. I mean, that's sort of the mentality, right? You have to know that you have to kind of be able to zig and zag, and you're going to have. I like to refer to as a series of sprints instead of a marathon. People will often say it's a marathon, and I'm like, it's kind of a series of sprints, because if you don't pause every once in a while, you will burn out. So I'd rather you sprint through something, and then let's celebrate what you achieved, have a little pause, and then let's move forward, right? Some good examples of this. Like yesterday, I was at the Gooder grand opening of their new market on Edgewood. And what a tremendous moment for Jasmine.
Shout out to Jasmine.
So
proud of her. Go Jasmine.
We board member launched her a physical store on Edgewood, a physical grocery store on Edgewood that will serve that amazing community. I worked in that community for 3 years, so I love that street. I love those old brick buildings. And, I was like, go celebrate this weekend. Take a pause. You deserve this, right? And so... because the sprint resumes Monday. Let's go, right? Okay, so I think it's important to take those moments to celebrate, and then pause and move on. I think it's when I'm coaching an entrepreneur, and say I'm meeting with you every month on a cadence. I know you're gonna go immediately into everything that's awesome that's happening with your business. So, like Shila, my last question is always okay, what's going abysmally wrong? Tell me what's going wrong, right? And they don't want to do it, right? And then I'll be like, look, when you get investors, you should actually probably in your investor newsletter that you send every month, put one thing that's wrong every single time as well. And they're like, why would I do that? And I'm like, because at some point down the road, you're going to actually have to give your investors really bad news. And it's going to be a lot easier to do it if you're a little bit used to giving them bad news. Because to go and do it in person at a board meeting and say hey, we're going to be out of money in 3 months, that's hard, right? So let's get them used to the idea that you're able to share bad news, that you're willing to share bad news in a timely manner so we can course correct. Because if you wait to the last minute, we can't course correct. And not only will you have a problem with your business, but you will have broken a relationship with the people that you have relied on to help fund you, that need to be your partners, right, on this journey. And so I think any woman can do this. She needs to choose it. She needs to choose it at the right time in her life. If there's all sorts of other chaos going on, this may not be the time. Right. I just had taken a step back in some ways because I was dealing with aging parent issues. So it happens on both sides, right? Sandwich generation kind of thing. You got to be aware of what you're going into. You've got to be open and vulnerable and communicate. And then I think you've also got to be willing to, I don't like the word pivot because it's, that implies a certain thing, but to know that it's a roller coaster ride. Right, and be on it, and take some pauses and do some self-care, and then come back out again. and self-care looks different for everybody. So, you know, but I think it's super important to just think about this as a roller coaster ride. You're going to be going 90 miles an hour, and then you need to take a pause.
Yeah.
Right. And then go 90 miles an hour, go. And sometimes my best ideas come in the middle of the pause.
Yeah.
But
absolutely. A
I
series
want
of
to
sprints.
add
I love
on
that.
to say what Topawatama says you have to be. You have to be a little bit crazy too,
Yep.
because to be sane in doing this, you could potentially lose your mind, right? So it takes somebody who has a bit of an adventurous spirit, right? Doesn't mind taking
That's
risks.
what they call it, delulu. You got to be a little delulu.
Yeah, you got to be cannot be risk averse. I mean, there's some things that have come my way. I have to take that chance and that opportunity, and so you do have to be a little delulu.
is it really risky though?
Is it risky? I don't know.
Right.
If people
Sometimes
say it's
I
risky.
look at it, it's like, well, it's my risk. Though. It's the risk
also gonna
I've
be my
chosen,
reward.
right? It's the risk
what I'm
I've
looking-
chosen. I'm not going to work for some big company that could just after 20 years say, see you bye, without having any control. I have, I get to decide every day, right? So in some ways, I think it's an educated decision.
Oh,
and that you're willing to take this risk. You're betting on yourself.
That part, you're betting on yourself, right?
You're betting on yourself and your team and the people that you choose to take on this journey with you, instead of relying on some other organization to take care of you.
Yep.
And in some ways, in today's day and age, with all the layoffs I read about, in some ways I feel like this may be your calling. You may want to be an entrepreneur, audience. Come talk to us if you are.
I want us to teach children entrepreneurship very early, because no one ever said to me, you can start your own business, right? You don't have to work for other people.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. So I spent a whole career working for other people, but I had made in my mind at a certain point, and we started small businesses, don't get me wrong. We never thought it was like going to go anywhere, because they were like, things that were personal to me. Like I did fashion styling at one point. My husband did office cleaning. He was, he was really good at it. But we didn't think about this is the thing that's going to take us there. We still were growing our family, that sort of. Once my son graduated from high school, I was on it.
Yeah. I
I was done right then. And I had already made up my mind. 2018, when it came, I was done. And so January 2018 is when I started my business. I had my house was empty. My husband was still working, but I felt really confident because I was betting on me. I had a 20 plus years of experience. I was going to take that experience and do something that I wanted to do. And while I pivoted a few times, I landed on venture capital. And I didn't choose venture capital. Venture capital chose me. And that was because an entrepreneur asked me to source investors for him, and I didn't know what that meant. But I got curious, and I got educated around it, and now here we are 7 years later.
I love that.
So your perspective, and really a lot of kind of jewels around mindset and perspective. Let's talk about the community piece. And really what I'm hearing from both of you is understanding what the opportunity is of entrepreneurship. Being in Atlanta, I know I can even speak for myself. I'm just 5 years in, absolutely love Atlanta. It has been I can't even speak to how much it means to me, this community. For entrepreneurs, women in particular, how inclusive is the community of Atlanta of supporting women entrepreneurs? And how close are we to being what you would call a thriving community for women entrepreneurs? How close are we, Jen?
That's a tough one.
Give it to
us.
us.
So I mean, the state of Georgia has been probably one of the top 5 states for women business owners since 2008. When I started tracking these things. So I launched Startup Chicks in 2008. I launched Startup Chicks as a nonprofit to help women growing, hopefully high growth potential startups in Atlanta around that time, because I was going to all these events and not seeing any women. So there were about 6 of us. You'd go to a tech event and there'd be 300 women in the room, and or 300 people in the room, and there'd be 6 women. You'd go to a pitch competition and there'd be 50 companies on stage, and not a single female founder would grace that stage in 2008. So just some framework there, right? So I think we've come a long way. I think we've come a long way with, specifically in the tech ecosystem, or high growth potential ecosystem. Are we there yet? No, we're not there yet. I still go to events and I'm like, okay, where are the women?
What's stopping us? Where are the barriers? What's up? What's going on here? Why are we not farther along?
Well, I do think capital is a big issue still for all entrepreneurs in Atlanta, regardless of gender, race, sexual identity, anything else you want to declare. So I do think that's still a challenge. I think it's a great place to grow a company and grow a family. I think our ecosystem is come so far from where I first saw it, and I was a founder in Atlanta in 1997, my very first startup. Wow. So I can go back across the ages and see the different changes. But I think we are being very intentional right now. We're a city that likes to be intentional. I think we're a city that likes to be inclusive, and I think we're being very intentional to make sure that it grows and it thrives. I will actually say, we're trying to be like, how do we grow this and have it be equitable? New York went from top 20 startup hub to number 2, and I talked to the people that did some lobbying and helped craft some of the policies that they did to do so. And that organization specifically said New York didn't care about being equitable. New York just wanted to get to the top. When I have that conversation with this organization, I said, but we need to be equitable about it. And they are like, we want to do business with you because you're the only city in the world that has come to us and said, you want to be a top 5 startup hub and you want to be equitable about it. Like, we can't leave people behind. We have to take everybody on this journey. And so I think that's in Atlanta's DNA, which is one of the things that makes it so amazing, is that's in our DNA. And I think as a community, there's over 300 community partners. There's 119.
So many resources.
There's 119 in the city of Atlanta proper for entrepreneurs. Just did the math, right? So there's so many resources there. And I think the number one thing still holding us back is whether you're an entrepreneurship support organization or you're an entrepreneur, both of you struggle with capital.
Shila, what are we doing really well, and where are the opportunities? What has changed? What do you think about this?
So what we do really well is we somehow create great talent, right? We have the best university systems with Georgia Tech, Georgia State, the HBCUs. And so if nothing else, we have incredible talent. What we do wrong is we let that talent leave and go to other ecosystems and build, right? So they may go to the coast, they may go to Boston, somewhere in the Midwest, but they leave. And we have to find a way to keep them here. And there's a concerted effort. There's ACES that is now trying to cultivate relationships. There's CreateX. There's Chris Kloss, who I think is kind of leading that way, because he's like, I will incorporate your company if you build a business here. And so we have to somehow keep these folks here. Talent comes here, right? You're from Ohio. There's something in the water here that people love, and they feel like they can build here because there is a sense of community. I'm from Florida originally. I've been here 22 years. I feel this is basically home for me because I feel like I can build. I've transformed myself. The city itself is on the cusp of transformation. And I just think there's so much opportunity here. In terms of women, capital, number 1. But I'm going to tell you something that somebody told me yesterday that just moved from Detroit. She went to an event and she said, oh my gosh, it was all women. Where are the men? So that is sort of a handshake for you, because that now is starting happening in places where people are going in and feeling and this was a woman, feeling very comfortable in the room because there were a lot of other women in the room. And so women are starting to show up, and I'm glad they're feeling comfortable in finding spaces where they can show up. Because I think that was another thing. Women didn't know where to go. Where could I go and I feel comfortable as a woman in this co-working space? And so now they're finding those spaces. I've gone over and talked to the women who have been in WE. Those women have eventually come over to our program. So you see like this transition of community you talk about, where we're all trying to help the entrepreneur on their journey get to a certain place. And I think that's beautiful to see. And we're just going to get better with that. We're trying to be a top 5 tech community. And there are lots of things that have to happen. But capital is a number 1 driver of that.
I had an old boss that asked me once, what does it take to be successful at this? So this startup, they're now successful. Who made that happen? I'm like, well, first off, they did. The startup did. But then they're like, well, what entity helped them? And I'm like, well, SCORE did coaching, and Georgia State helped with this, and Georgia Tech did this, and then ATGC did this, and then they finally ended up at ATV, and then they went through Zane, and so we all did. It takes a city.
It's
going to take a city. Well, I'm going to say it takes a city because we're in the city of Atlanta. So it takes a city to raise these entrepreneurs up and help them get to the success levels that they aspire to and that we aspire them to hit.
Yeah.
And here's what I would love to see. Once they finish all this programming and now they're ready for capital, they can close their round here.
Yeah.
They wouldn't have to go anywhere but Atlanta or somewhere in the Southeast. They should be able to close their round.
So you guys are making this so easy. Why invest in women? Okay, so we do all the things, and we're going to really start to focus in on the purpose, the why behind the Women's Entrepreneurship Initiative. But why invest in women? Like, why would it be significant for a city like Atlanta? You brought up New York. We have these other tech hubs or top 5 tech hub. Why invest? Why would it be beneficial for Atlanta to have a concerted effort to invest in female founders? Like, why would that be important?
So I think first off, everyone should invest in women. I mean, the stats are out there. Companies that have women on their board, public companies that have women on their board, are more successful, earn more revenue, right? Grow faster, things like that. Women are a really good bet. If you invest in a female founder, like, she's going to make it happen. Right.
That's the resilience.
They don't walk away from the
return on
commitments that they
resilience.
make. Women do not walk away from the commitments that they make. Right. So I think all the studies say that we should invest in women. Launched the Women's Entrepreneurship Initiative for the City of Atlanta was launched 10 years ago through a partnership with the city, the mayor, Kasim Reed at the time, and Invest Atlanta. And at the time, this was, there wasn't as much activity for female entrepreneurs. There wasn't other co-working spaces that were necessarily female-friendly. And the mayor saw this need for women to have this place where they could go and they could build their companies. It's changed a little bit. Like, we have all these other vibrant areas, and that's one of the reasons why we is kind of pivoting more from an incubator with physical space to an accelerator that introduces women to the other amazing spaces that they could work in, and really more focused on a program that educates and provides tools for growth from being a physical incubator. But I think it's so important and still important, to invest in female founders. This is not the time to back off on our investments in female founders. This is not the time. So, I think right now we're at this pivotal time in the world where we need female founders, and we need them to be successful. We need them to grow businesses that create jobs and create wealth for their families and their employees' families, and have big exits that starts this whole cycle of now all those people can invest in the next generation and the next generation. And at the end of the day, 10 years from now, I hope we look back and we say, you know what? Atlanta's the best place in the world for a female founder to launch business, because she's got a tribe, she's got safe places, she's got access to capital, and we're number one in the world.
Love that. Why invest in women, Shila?
Because they return 33% more capital back to their investors than their male counterparts.
Plain and simple.
Good, she's got the numbers.
Yeah.
Somebody would have the numbers.
And they outperform them in terms of, from a performance standpoint. What I love about women, once they're educated, this is women investors, because I know we're talking about founders. Jewel Burke-Solomon is a founder here, now investor here in Atlanta. She had a hard time raising capital when she was raising for her fund, so she has now made a commitment to invest in other founders. Jewel also is an investor in funds. She's an investor in Zane. And so when women bet on other women, it becomes cyclical. And so once I've heard about how we can kind of help each other out, my whole goal is that the companies that I invest in will turn around and invest in other women. And so I just believe that there was something, resilience is somewhat innate, right? We didn't ask for it. We didn't ask for this sort of burden to be so, to overcome barriers, but it's just part of our DNA. And so I think because of that, we can overcome way more barriers. And I'm not, I invest in men too. I have nothing against men, but this is about women right now. And so I just want to know, I want to just say that women are just way more resilient. They build things, they break things, they know how to put them back together. And so if they're not a bet, I don't think people should be betting on anyone.
I love this. I love this. That's the return on resilience. I think this was
the
a
return
great
on investment.
Yes.
I would also say women tend to solve challenges that need solving. So there's also typically a social impact to a lot of the women's ventures that I meet with, or a lot of the women's startups that I meet with. There's a social component.
Yeah.
So not only by growing a business are they enabling themselves, but they're literally making the world a better place.
Yeah. It's a different level of service, a different level of community.
We just got to get paid.
Yeah,
we
just got to get paid.
Right?
We got to keep our eye on the money.
Yes.
So, I think this is a great start to a wonderful, important, and significant conversation. I want to thank you both for being the first inaugural guests. We are wrapping it up. Thank you so much. And thank you to the audience for joining us on our first episode of Returns on Resilience. Until next time. Thanks for joining us for Returns on Resilience. If this conversation sparked something in you or reminded you of someone who needs to hear it, share it, follow us wherever you listen to podcasts, and visit weatlanta.com for more stories, resources, and ways to connect.